From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello and very happy belated Easter weekend, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson.
And I am the voice of all reason, the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV. Snowbound in Winter Wonderland on April 2nd, where opening day is canceled.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And women's basketball teams are on the rise. Yankees are gone. Nets are belittled. Knicks are down. Giants don't know who they're picking. And the Jets are in the wonderment. What's going to happen in sports with the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Devils, and every other New York team that I've missed?
Well,
welcome to In the Bleachers, right, Jamie?
Yep, you pretty much said it in a nutshell.
What a hell of a way to start a segment.
You could say that again. I mean, when you think about it, this isn't the first time that we've had snow in April.
True. This is true. A lot of people have forgotten that. How many years has it been? It's been, 5 or 6 years or 10?
About 5 years ago, we had a major snowstorm, which was significantly worse than this one.
Yeah, that one lasted, 3 days, 4 days?
Mm-hmm, about 3 or 4 days.
Do you remember Tony Mandrich?
Of course.
One of the worst
One of the worst draft picks ever made. He was supposed to be the next great offensive lineman coming out of Michigan State. He wound up getting picked in the NFL. He was a high number one draft pick. I think he was picked second or third overall in the NFL draft. Complete and utter flop in the NFL.
Because I'm reading a list of Steve Ittman.
Steve Entman was another one.
Of all the best players that each team picked and all the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And my goodness, they're incredible because for instance, you got Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And Steve Ittman. There's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacksonville Jaguars, best player, Tony Bosa.
You mean Tony Baselli?
But Tony Baselli and Justin Blackman.
Yeah, Tony didn't have a completely bad NFL career. I mean, he only lasted 7 years because he had countless knee injuries, but he was okay. Justin Blackman is someone who, unfortunately, had a lot of personal issues getting his way.
You know, I tell you, speaking of, wait a minute, there's one more. Darrelle Revis was the Jets, and
Darrell has had a very good career, though.
And Vernon Golston.
Oh, my goodness. The last name that Jet fans want to hear out of anybody's mouth is Vernon Golston. He did not have one single NFL sack in the 3 or 4 years that he played for the Jets. Not one.
That's terrible.
And he was supposed to be the next great defensive line prospect.
Yeah, I mean, this list can go on, and it's a funny list. But going back to picking,
the draft isn't too far away.
Yeah, but March Madness is over. The madness of March is over.
Well, the month of March is over. The month of March is over, but the last official game of the tournament and of the basketball season, college basketball season, is tonight.
Yeah, and who's left and what's going on?
Who's left is Villanova and Michigan. They're going to play each other for the title tonight. Villanova is the favorite in this one, and they're going for their second title in the last 3 years. And this is a team that has really put themselves at the forefront of one of the best teams in the country. They've been a real model of consistency, not just in the Big East Conference season, but in the tournament as well. 2 years ago, they won the title with Chris Jenkins' 3 at the buzzer. Last year, they got knocked out in the second round. This year, they've been, I don't want to say the hands-on favorite, but they've been one of the favorites to really take the title this year. And it just goes to show you how great of a job Jay Wright has done coaching this team. And when you think about it, he's been able to do this with defense. He's done this with three-point shooting. He's done this with really good height on the front line. And when you think of Villanova, not only do you think of Jay Wright, but you also think of some of the good players that he has, like Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, who's the player of the year. You probably remember his father, Rick Brunson, who played 2.5 years with the Knicks and was a journeyman in the NBA. Jalen Brunson, a lot of guys say that he's the better player of the two, and he has become the man to lead the show at the point guard spot for Villanova this year.
Wondering, who are the people that are coming out in the draft for those teams this year?
Well, for Villanova,
If any.
in all likelihood, it might be Mikal Bridges. He's in his junior year. He could probably go now if he really wanted to. For Michigan, probably Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, who's been their best player this season. Other than that, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Jalen Brunson turn pro as well. There's also Amari Spellman. He might be able to turn pro this year because he's had a very, very solid season.
And Bridges, the Knicks are looking after him real hard, from what I read.
There are a lot of teams that have shown a lot of interest in that young man because he's somebody who is not just a solid three-point shooter, but he's also really durable on the front line. He hustles. He's a good rebounder. He's a very hard-nosed defender. There's also Eric Pascal from Villanova, another junior who's become probably the best shooter that Villanova has right now.
Wow. And then it's funny thing, too. Who do you think has the best chance of winning?
When you think about it, I really like Villanova in this one. They have more height on the front line. I think they're better at the point guard spot. And quite frankly, when you think about it, both teams are really, really strong defensively. I think Michigan's defense has really grown by leaps and bounds in the last 2 months. But when you think about it, I think Villanova wins this one.
Villanova wins it. Wow. And why? Because they have a better offensive team, defensive, or they got better big men?
Defensively, they are so much better. And also, they've got a really good go-to guy in Brunson who can not only create for teammates, but is also a really good creator of shots for himself. The one thing that might hinder him, though, is he is a little bit undersized for a point guard. He's only about 6'2 or 6'3". So I think the height advantage is going to be going against him in this one.
Wow. And, you know, the women's team, Notre Dame's women's team did very well this year, too.
Yep. They won the national championship last night. This entire weekend, Notre Dame won both games in the semifinals and in the championship game with last-second three-pointers. And one of those games happened to be against Connecticut, the only undefeated team in the country going into the tournament. And for the second straight year, UConn gets knocked out in the Final Four.
Yeah, I'm reading also about high school baseball. Tottenville stays unbeaten after 4 games. Pirates top New York and win 2 games in Monroe tournament.
Yep.
You know anything about that one?
First I've heard about it, but they started baseball season just recently. And as always, Tottenville is going to be up there with some of the best teams, not just here on Staten Island, but in the entire city. So watch out for Tottenville to make a play for the city title this year.
They normally have a really good team, solid. What is it about Tottenville that
pitching
has a good team? Because they normally have a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their first time.
Pitching is what has led Tottenville over the years.
Wow. And Wagner's Freddie Savito named NSC Player of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad for Staten Island. And let me see, Women's Lauren Edwin named NEC Women's Lacrosse Player. All right.
Yep.
Ernest
That's in the college lacrosse circuit. She wound up winning the
for
Northeast
Wagner.
Conference Player of the
Very
Week.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Is Wagner placed in the proper tournament or they're Division I, right?
Yeah.
Wagner?
Every school that they play is Division I.
And they get no hype out of it. We never hear them play Georgetown or anything of that nature, aren't they? Or is that in the
any
wrong?
sport or in one sport in particular?
In basketball, let's say, because
they have had a couple of big meetings with big teams in the past. One of their more famous victories was against Duke, but that was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And just recently, Wagner had a big win at Connecticut, I think about a year or two ago.
Do they play it here on Staten Island?
No, they always go on the road to play these teams.
Oh, boy. Okay, because they can't handle the
thing is, if they were to make their way over here, it would be tough to try and accommodate every single fan that wants to see them play.
Oh.
Not only that, but Wagner plays in a very small gymnasium, which is the Spiro Center, and they only seat about 2,000, maybe 3,000 fans.
Amazing. They used to have some good wrestling matches there, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So on. But going on, as you can see, the New York teams, LeBron set a new record.
Yep. He's now scored in double figures in the most consecutive games in NBA history. I think the number is 866 or 966. Yeah. He beat Michael Jordan's record.
Yeah, and at 33 years old, how much do you think he's got left in the tank?
He's got plenty left in the tank. LeBron is still at the peak of his career. He's still dominant. He can still score at will and create shots for himself and for teammates. And he's also in tremendous shape. I think he's got another maybe 5 years left in him.
Do you think he leaves Cleveland?
Do I think he leaves Cleveland? Possibly. I mean, this year he's had a couple of issues, not just with Tyronn Lue, but he's also had a couple of issues with management as well. So don't be surprised if you see him leave for some greener pastures, although after what he's done for the Cavaliers, why would he even want to?
Well, if he thinks that it's like everything else, it's either about money or about championships. You're going to go to the team that has the best possibility as you get older that you want to go to a championship team. That was supposed to be Carmelo Anthony's dream, but at this point in time, they may have a chance of making the playoffs, but can they get over that hump of going all the way? Oklahoma, that's another thing. But with LeBron, I am assuming it's either he wants to win championships or it's the money. Now, if he goes to Lakers, as they're so-called predicting, does he make an impact? Of course he does. But does he go all the way with that team?
Well, it's not like the Lakers are totally devoid of talent. I mean, they have improved from maybe 20 wins last year to about 30 this year. So there's just a teeny bit of improvement. And there's also a pretty decent core of younger players. I mean, there's Lonzo Ball, of course. Also Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Julius Randle. So when you think about it, some of the younger players are there, but the supporting cast after those guys, it's hit or miss when you think about it.
And the second thing you got to remember is, he's getting away with it a lot. LeBron's getting away with a lot in Cleveland.
Yeah, he's calling all the shots over there.
He must have stock on the team because he gets rid of players. He has decisions on people. I'm assuming the way he's talking and all that, even though he says, the GM has the last decision. But
no, he doesn't have the last decision. That's LeBron's team through and through.
And if he goes to another team like the Lakers, I'm sorry. Magic Johnson's not going to put up with that.
Oh, no. The Lakers are now the Magic Johnson show. That is his baby. That is his team. That is his franchise. Everything revolves around him. Of course, he does have to consult with Jeannie Buss.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Magic basically made the franchise what they are today.
True. Yeah, I mean, he got a good core of young guys, and I'm sure, again, it'll take him about 2 or 3 years to actually build if they get the right players.
Mm-hmm.
Just like every other team, the Sixers, Celtics, everybody. But, again, going back to LeBron, because that's the big hype nowadays, he may possibility go to the 76ers, which is a long shot. But again, good young core team.
Mm-hmm.
How much voice does he have on a team of that nature? You're a superstar. You've done it all. How much voice do you have?
Only on Cleveland can he try and dictate things. But if he were to go someplace else, it would be a totally different story. But I do want to follow up on what you said about it being about the money or not. He's got plenty of money. He doesn't have to try and get himself a bigger paycheck. If he re-signed with the Cavaliers, would he earn more money? If he were to go someplace else, he would probably have to defer money somewhere. Or maybe if it were a sign-and trade, maybe he could get himself a pay raise. But right now, it's about wanting to win a 4th title. That's all he is consumed with right now.
He wants to be another Michael Jordan. Yeah, I mean, 10 titles is tough. But I'm assuming he's trying to get up there like that to be one of the greatest players of all time. In this era, he's one of the best players of all time.
Yeah,
in this era.
In this day, he is the best player.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk about greatest player of all time,
That's
in our
tough.
era, I would say it's Michael.
Yeah.
Of all time, though,
that's a tough one.
It is a tough one, considering that there have been so many spectacular players to have come through.
Yeah.
When you go back to the old days, Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, maybe. Russell was the greatest champion and also the greatest postseason player, but Wilt Chamberlain was probably the best overall player. I mean, he was a spectacular defender. The only problem with him was he could not make free throws to save his life. He was barely a 50% shooter from the foul line.
Yeah, and what's funny is Rick Barry's method, as bad as it looks, he got the ball in. I don't know why people don't use the underhanded. If you can't shoot overhand, you might as well go underhand.
You know, it's funny that you bring this up because I was watching a video not too long ago, and they were talking about the difference in shooting between players who are 220 pounds and lower and players who are 220 pounds or heavier. And this guy seems to think that the more of a lightweight that a guy is, for example, if he's under 220 pounds, the better shooter he's going to be. Whereas if someone is maybe like Shaquille O'Neal and he's about 250, maybe almost 300 pounds, he would not be as good a shooter. And that's interesting considering that LeBron is an 80% free throw shooter, and when he was really chiseled, he was about 260 pounds.
Well, the man follows through. If you look at his shot, most people follow through with their shot. Manute Bol always had that hitch.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, even nowadays, the center, they have some type of hitch, or because they're so tall, they have to do other things than the smaller guys. Or the ball has to go up in a certain arc in the middle of before it gets down to the hoop. There's all sorts of method, or the hand is too big. Something happens, but all I'm saying is, if, as a friend of mine used to say, if you can't shoot overhand, do the Rick Barry method.
There you go. When in doubt.
And because it doesn't look good, for TV, people are shying away from it.
Yeah.
Not knowing that they could get a very good percentage out of it. But, will the Knicks be number 8 or number 9 in the draft? Because they're 1 game behind the Chicago Bulls and 2 games behind the New Jersey Nets, even though that doesn't count because they're not in the draft this year, if I remember correctly.
The Brooklyn Nets?
Yes, the Brooklyn Nets.
They are without a number 1 draft pick this year.
But they are.
The only bright side is this is the last year that they're going to be without a number 1 pick because of all the trades that they made, in which they constantly sacrificed number 1 picks.
Yeah, and I feel bad for that coach. I think he's out. Is he still the coach of the Brooklyn Nets?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson is going to be the guy. He is Sean Marks' guy. He's not going anywhere.
Look at that. Now, there's the difference. I don't understand between the Knicks and the Nets. This is a guy that's a good coach, and the team bombs. They get decent players. They got good players on that team. They make really good trades.
Mm-hmm.
And he's solid. Go to the Knicks, it's as if a revolving door.
That's because that franchise is operating under an ownership which had a bad habit of sounding the alarm and predicting doom and gloom. And it's not just recently. This goes back almost 17 years.
But you got to remember, not that the Nets have done any better, because they haven't won as many. I don't think many NBA championships as the Knicks. The only
thing that the Nets have done is win an ABA title.
Exactly, and that was with Dr. J. Okay, and you see, that's my whole point. I don't understand what the Brooklyn Nets or the New Jersey Nets problems at the times, and I don't understand what the Brooklyn Nets now is at the time. But yet they'll still keep that coach for a very long time.
Yeah.
As if they're building the proper way. What is the difference in the players that the Nets have and the Knicks have right now?
Well, for one, the Nets are at least a little bit more settled at point guard. Not only that, but I think that the guy that they have right now, Spencer Dinwiddie, he's been around roughly the same time as maybe Emmanuel Mudiay, Spencer Dinwiddie is playing better basketball right now than either Emmanuel Mudiay or Frank Ntilikina or Jarrett Jack or Trey Burke is at the moment. I mean, you don't see it because of a constant number of losses, but Dinwiddie has had games where he's made some really, really big plays for them and also made some big shots for them. He's not only that, but he's more of a shot creator for teammates than for himself. And whereas with some of the other younger players that they had, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is improving more and more, rebounding the basketball for a guy of his height than anybody that's on the Knicks right now. And you look at the other youngster that the Nets have, Karis LeVert. I mean, he has been a little bit more inconsistent, but he is probably more of a pure shooter than anybody that the Nets that the Knicks have on their roster right now. Which is a lot considering that the Knicks have Tim Hardaway Jr., who's had his days where he can explode at any time, or Michael Beasley, who's supposed to be a good shooting forward, but has been frustratingly inconsistent this year.
That's probably suffering.
What's that?
Troy Williams suffering a fractured jaw, out for the season.
Uh-oh. Well, as if that franchise has not had any more have, as we see the little basketball graphic right there. But at the same time, when you think about it, that I would say the Nets probably have 5 really, really good players that they can try and build with or build around for the future.
And the Knicks?
The Knicks, they've probably got one player resembling a superstar, Porzingis, that they can try and build not necessarily around, but build with.
And you're not giving Frank and Nikita any shot.
If he can improve his perimeter game, maybe he can be someone that the Knicks can try and rely on. But right now, he has zero offensive game to his arsenal whatsoever.
You know, because they're giving a hard time to Frank and Nikita and Dennis Smith Jr., comparing him to him. And, again,
can you blame them? Dennis Smith Jr.'s had a better season.
2 different ball players and 2 different teams. Could he have done the same thing with the Knicks? Because even the Knicks have had as good as picks as they have gotten, you know, like Ken the Animal Bannister or Marvin Webster. Marvin Webster, when he went to the Knicks, he was supposed to be this explosive guy, came out of nowhere and lost his mind. Okay? Now,
and also got hurt.
Exactly. So what makes you think that it wasn't, you know, something in the air that he was supposed to go to the other team and not to the Knicks? Because remember, when Frank Nikita was posted, he was posted for his defensive paralysis, 19 years old, and he knew the triangle. And that's why they got him instead of Dennis Smith Jr.
The other thing, too, was that Dennis Smith Jr. also had a surgically repaired right knee that scared off some teams. That's why he plunged down 1 pick after the Knicks did.
So this is why. Can you blame the Knicks for not picking a guy that has a knee problem? Because knowing the Knicks curse, or the Nets curse.
Yeah, if you talk to Paul Pierce, he does say that the Knicks are cursed.
You know, it's just one of those things because remember, what's that guy's name from the Nets? He had 2 broken legs.
You mean Sam Bowie?
Yeah, Sam Bowie.
Yeah, although
Jesus.
his injuries came when he was with Portland. When he got
Yeah.
traded to the Nets, he actually was a pretty serviceable player.
Yeah, he was serviceable, but he got more injuries there than anything. And his nickname was Sam Gooey.
Oh, brother. And as it turns out, Sam Bowie was also the kid who was picked 1 spot ahead of Michael Jordan.
Look at that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
That this is why I'm saying if Dennis Smith Jr. would have been on the Knicks, and if there would have been a problem with his knee, fans would have been going, "Why did you pick him since you knew he had a knee problem?"
Yep.
So there's no winning with the Knicks nor the Nets. There's no winning. It's either big guy. Now, if they get Bridges, has no problems, can score, then you see him in the NBA. And if he doesn't do anything, the Knicks fans are going to go erupt and go and say, well, what happened to him?
Nothing happened to him yet. This is assuming that
This is assuming
he's
that
going to
he
be
goes to the Knicks.
that
This
he's
is what
even
I'm
going to
saying.
declare. First of all,
Yeah, which I'm sure
And
he is.
he probably will. And the fact that he's also a junior, it'll probably help his cause because he's had 3 great years, and he's on the verge of winning a 2nd title. So naturally, they're going to have to. Some team would be interested in someone with that winning pedigree of his.
Yeah, because imagine him and Porzingis together when Porzingis comes back, and if he comes back healthy, and depending upon who's at center, so you got Bridges, Cantor, and Porzingis.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad.
It's a very deep front line. You'd have a guy who's 6'10", another who's 6'11", and another who's 7'3", manning your front line.
Yeah, that's insane.
That should be that should be no problem for that front line to try and get rebounds.
And and they always say a guard is a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
But because if you have a great line, sometimes that relieves the guard a little bit because the guard doesn't have to do much except pass it to the forwards or the center.
Yeah. Depending on the situation, though.
Yeah,
Because sometimes
exactly.
sometimes the guard will create for himself, and he'll be one of the few sources of offense.
Exactly. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is not bad. He's not.
He was never a terrible player. I mean, he came from some great bloodlines. He's Tim Hardaway's kid, and he had a really good college career at Michigan. It's just that he just has not been able to put it together in the pros.
And he's not a horse, man. The bloodline of Secretariat runs through him. No, this isn't.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
He comes from a good family tree.
Yeah, I know. He comes from a basketball family, and he has done. Michigan and all that, great team. But for some reason, is the Knicks cursed like Boston at one point?
Like, you mean the Red Sox?
The Red Sox, yeah, the Boston Red Sox.
Or the Chicago Cubs?
Yeah.
Or the Cleveland Browns, or the Arizona Cardinals, or the Detroit Lions?
Exactly. I mean, you have something. Because right now, if Hornacek leaves, as they're predicting, then you got Mark Jackson or Doc Rivers. Now, if you get Doc Rivers, you have to give up something for him.
Yeah, because next year is the walk year of his contract as well.
Right. And you got Mark Jackson. Now, why isn't Mark Jackson coaching? That's a whole problem within itself.
I think I might know. I think I might know one reason why.
Go ahead.
I think he might be a little too demanding when it comes to dealing with management. Keep in mind, Mark Jackson is a very strong-willed, very, I don't want to say hard-headed, but he's the kind of guy who marches to the beat of his own drummer. He thinks that there is a certain method of ways that have to be run, and that they have to be run his way, or guys can take the highway. And I think that the management and Golden State didn't really appreciate his headstrong type of attitude, so they probably forced him out.
But here's the deal with that. Okay, you can say it's racism. You can say, because remember, with other coaches that are the same way, they let them get away with it. Now, you can say that some of those coaches that they let them get away with it have won championships.
Yeah.
But if you don't but they've gone for many years in the league. Mark Jackson comes in, or let's say any minority coach comes in, has the same attitude, and, they go, oh, no, we can't have that. I mean, he's got to get a chance. And look at Doc Rivers. He's been rehashed 3 times already.
Yep.
If you think about it, Jason Kidd twice. And these are guys that, the only person that I can see getting offers is Doc Rivers.
Oh,
but Jason Kidd, normally, if he was Caucasian, he would get a lot more offers than he is now.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the past. Look at the past of all the people that had, all the coaches that were rehashed in the past.
Right.
And you'll see there's a pattern there. Mm-hmm. There's always a pattern in every league. I mean, it's ridiculous how things are run, how racism flourishes sometimes. And it doesn't have to be racism. It's just the fact that that's not the person that they want, and it just looks like it. But it just goes to show you that a person like Mark Jackson, like you said, could be so headstrong because he's a great commentator.
Yes, he is.
And Jeff Van Gundy, that's another guy that blows my mind.
Jeff Van Gundy's different, though, because he seems pretty happy doing the broadcast booth.
Because his brother was talking about how the Knicks don't appreciate Jeff Van Gundy nor Mark Jackson.
Let me tell you something. Jeff Van Gundy was probably the most underappreciated coach that I have ever seen on an NBA sideline. What he did for that franchise, not just as a head coach, but as an assistant coach.
Yeah.
He put in a long, long career with that franchise, and still he gets basically discarded by them, as if he didn't even work there.
And the one that you see is Jeff Van Gundy holding Patrick Ewing's leg.
Mm-hmm.
That's always the famous one. But again, if Will Bridges, if he goes to the Knicks, if they're in their right mind, it seems, they're going in the right path because they're looking at this kid. If they don't get him, I'm wondering who they're going to get.
If they don't get Bridges?
Yeah. If Bridges goes up in the draft, they're done because there's nobody like Bridges around.
Well, again, this is assuming that they're going to hover around 8th or 9th place in the draft standings.
Yeah.
But maybe one of the kids from Kentucky, because Kentucky seems like they're turning out an assembly line of players every single year for the last 15 years now.
Wow.
By the way,
I heard Rick Pitino may come back too.
to the NBA or to the
Yes.
college game?
No, to the NBA.
I wouldn't rule it out because he's had that experience there before, but would they really want someone with his excess baggage patrolling their sidelines? Not only that, but what NBA player is going to listen to a 65-year-old college head coach?
He was a good coach too for the Knicks.
Only for 2 years, though. But when he went to the Celtics, that's when he had real problems.
Yeah, and again, it all depends on the players that you have. The players are what makes you great too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as a college coach, you can put him up there as one of the great coaches of all time.
Yep.
But is he a great NBA coach? He's better than average.
Oh,
But
he
the
was
Yankees-
expected to
yeah.
do a lot for the Celtics, though, and he did not do that.
Isaiah Thomas going down, too. You know, every time you think of Isaiah Thomas, you think of him as the Detroit Pistons. Imagine if Isaiah Thomas went to the Detroit Pistons again.
Wow. The Pistons already have issues of their own, man. They don't need to. They don't need to be brought further down to Skid Row than they already are. They're trying to get out of Skid Row.
Yeah, but, you know, at least they got one good player there. I mean,
On the Pistons, you mean?
yeah.
Well, Andre Drummond has been an all-star. They made the trade for Blake Griffin.
Blake
Reggie
Griffin.
Jackson's a pretty decent point guard.
So, what's the problem?
The problem is they've had major problems on the defensive end, especially in the backcourt. Not only that, but they're playing in a really tough Central Division with Cleveland and Milwaukee and Indiana, three teams that are desperately trying to get themselves a little bit higher in the Eastern Conference.
April 4th is the Yankees opening.
Mm-hmm. Because
The
today...
Yankees are 1-1, right?
What's that?
The Yankees are 1-1 right now.
2-2 to be exact.
2-2.
Because they split 4 games in Toronto to open the season.
Dylan Patanis didn't hold up.
No, and unfortunately, he got back into some really bad habits from last year, too. I'm hoping that he can get those fixed by the time May and June come around. Because he slumped pretty badly at times last year.
You know, how do you see them as? Do you see them still as the top players or the top teams?
The Yankees are definitely one of the top teams out there in the American League. I also look at the Red Sox because of their pitching. I also look at Cleveland. I still think they're going to be pretty tough in that Central Division. A lot of people have had great things to say about the Anaheim Angels.
I wish they were the California Angels again. I can't stand Anaheim.
Yeah. I think the batting order that they have is going to be really deadly for teams to go against this year. So the Angels, don't count out the Astros because they are the defending champions. Plus, not only did they keep everyone from last season's team, they also acquired Garrett Cole to be on their pitching staff. You put him in there with Justin Verlander and Dallas Keuchel, that's a deadly trio of pitchers that you're going to have to face one out of these 5 days. And there's also the issue of the Central Division. Cleveland's going to be tough. Chicago's building with their younger players, the White Sox, that is. Kansas City is going to be marginal at best. Detroit's building with younger players as well. So, also the Minnesota Twins. They've got such a great core of young hitters. And the pitching staff that they have really has a chance to take them to the next level Don't be surprised if you see the Twins challenge for another wild card spot like they did last year.
Yeah, the miracle, you would say.
Mm-hmm.
The miracle, the miracles, the miracles. And, who are they playing opening day?
Which team are you talking about?
The Yankees and the Mets. Who are they playing opening day for their prospective team?
Well, the Yankees, they're going to have their home opener pushed back to tomorrow. They're going to be playing Tampa. The Mets already had their home opener against St. Louis. They took 2 out of 3. So now they have the Phillies coming up. And the Phillies have already gotten themselves into hot water because they've already used 27 pitchers in the first 3 games.
How did that happen?
For one, they have a new manager who seems to want to try and win every game immediately. Not only that, but starting pitching hasn't been so great for them. Which is saying a lot considering they signed Jake Arrieta. Jake Arrieta is supposed to be their ace, and already the Phillies have gotten themselves into trouble.
It happens. I mean, you always try to win every game. I like when people say, oh, it's only the beginning of the season. They don't need games. Every game counts. Even though it's the start of the season, every game counts because win and losses.
You can say that again.
Because they could say, well, in the beginning, if they would have beaten these teams in the beginning, then they wouldn't have been in last place or so close to the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Them games actually count, especially within their own division. But I think it's going to be do you think it's going to be a great season for baseball?
I would think so. Because
the ratings are going to go up, you think?
TV ratings, I'm hoping the TV ratings do go up because there's a real good core of great, great young players that they can watch on television and be really marvel at the way that their skill set can just shine through a TV set.
Now, here's a question. Do you need a major team to be in the World Series, and then do you need a team that's not there for people to watch? Let's say the World Series or the playoffs.
That's a really good question.
Because for instance, the Yankees, they're you either love them or hate them.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Yankees play, you love them or hate them. That's why it's like a wrestling match. You want to see them win or you want to see them lose.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you need a major team to play against them? Let's say a not so major team.
Well, if I can borrow the basketball analogy for a moment.
Go ahead.
All those years ago, when Michael Jordan had the 2 3-peats, their ratings were soaring through the roof. And each time he was going up against a different team, except for Utah, the Bulls beat the Lakers, the Trailblazers, the Suns, the former Supersonics, now known as Thunder, and the Jazz 2 years running. What was the common denominator in each of those series? It was Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
He was the most marketable. He was the most popular. He was the most beloved. That's why teams tuned in to see that team. That's why fans tuned in to see the Bulls and the NBA Finals, because the Bulls were in it.
Yeah, they wanted to see that the Bulls win or the Bulls lose. They wanted to see Michael win or lose.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with the NFL. Teams tune in because they want to see the Patriots lose. Well, fans tune in because they want to see the Patriots lose. Not only that, but you have so many teams with great fan bases, like the Packers and the Raiders and the Cowboys and the Steelers and the 49ers. all of them draw eyeballs. The Patriots, too. If you have one great team consistently go to the championship each and every year, there will be fans watching them on television. So to answer your question, yes, baseball needs that one team. Either that's got a great fan base or that you can classify as the villain. In this case, the Yankees are both. They've got the great fan base, and they are everybody's version of a villain.
Because some people say, I have a friend of mine who say that Yankee fans are very arrogant because they've won 27 World Series. They go around with their heads toting high. Now, I'm a Yankee fan, and I'm not like that. But I'm a New York fan, like you. But I'm just saying that there are some teams out there, like you said, the Patriots and the Yankees, that go around beating their heads going, well, my team has won this amount. What has your team done? Because look at the Islanders in their heyday.
Yep.
You know, the Islanders in their heyday, they wanted to see the Islanders lose.
Yeah.
The Rangers, the Islanders and the Rangers, they had some tough competition, and the Rangers wanted to see the Islanders lose real bad at their point, and I'm sure vice versa. But, you know, it's going to be a good season this year if everybody doesn't get hurt, major injuries, and everybody seems to do all right.
Well, it's funny that you mention injuries because already the Yankees have had quite a few guys get placed on the disabled list already.
Look at that.
I'm going to see if I can try and find that list.
Because you have Ellsbury still out.
Yeah.
And you got, what's his name, Aaron Judge playing center field instead of Gardner playing center field. They don't want to burn Gardner out. And I'm going, but he was built for center field. He's 34 years, but they're saying because he's 34 years old, he shouldn't be playing third. I mean, for crying out loud.
Yep.
And Ichiro swinging that sweet bat again for Seattle. I think he'll retire as a Mariner.
I think that's what he wanted all along, was to retire as a manager.
Even though he was with the Yankees for 1 year.
2.5 years, yeah.
Yeah, 2.5 years. And, you know, if that's what you bill for, that's what you bill for. But while you're looking at that, how do you see the Devils doing in the playoffs? Because the Rangers, it doesn't seem like the Rangers are going to make it, and the Islanders are gone.
Yeah, the Rangers season they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. The Rangers and the Islanders are both eliminated from playoff contention. As far as the Devils are concerned, it depends on where they finish in the standings. If they take 8th place in the East, they're going to have to face Boston. And right now, I would not want to face the Bruins if I'm the Devils. The Bruins have some real mammoth guys on the front line. They're also very strong in goal. So the Devils are going to have a real problem with the Bruins. The one team that they might be able to match up reasonably well with is Tampa. Tampa is decent in goal, but Tampa uses a lot more quickness than actual strength. So I think the Devils can match up pretty well with Tampa.
Wow. And next week is WrestleMania week 2. So we're going to see that, hopefully, if everything goes right.
Exactly right.
And
I just got the list of matches that are going to be going on for WrestleMania. It was sent to me by my friend Lynn, who's watching this on television right now.
Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns.
Yep.
You know Brock Lesnar is leaving. So does he keep the title and take it to UFC and he becomes a dual champion? Because the guy from UFC, the champion from UFC, already wants to fight Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. That's going to be a classic within itself if they let them fight. Daniel Bryan coming out of injury with his neck problem or
his concussion.
And will Shane McMahon coming out, even though he has his injuries as
And
well?
guess who's coming out of who else is coming out of retirement?
The Rock.
Close. The Undertaker.
He was never retired.
Yeah, he pretty much took a hiatus, although other people kind of thought of him as retired. But The Undertaker's facing John Cena this weekend.
Yeah. And it's like all wrestlers, man. They can't get it out of their blood system. Once you're a wrestler, you're a wrestler. I mean, hell, even I had one match, and I'd still like to go back in the ring just for fun. It's fun. It's a fun thing.
Yep. The big match in this one is that mixed tag match between Triple H and his better half, Stephanie McMahon, against Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
They've been pushing this for the longest time, man.
And I heard something very, very interesting, that they're going to try, once this match is over with them, and you know who's going to win. They have to make Angle and Rousey win.
Of course.
Because it doesn't make any sense if they lose, if they're pushing Rousey. But they're waiting for Asuka versus Rousey for WrestleMania 34.
Now that would be interesting.
Or is it 35? WrestleMania 35, is it?
It's it is WrestleMania 35 next year, which would be at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, and I heard that that's one of the lines, that they were trying to push Rousey and Asuka. That would be because Asuka has MMA background too. And that's what I don't understand. Some of these people are coming from MMA, like Sean Baszler, and there's another girl down there that does MMA. They can fight amongst each other. They both have MMA style, so they can go well with her.
Yeah, but don't you think it would be a little bit too much to bring in these other athletes, and they would probably turn this into another showcased version of MMA?
Well, wrestling is wrestling. And if you combine wrestling, I mean, look at Kurt Angle. Look how he flourished. Mm-hmm. People want to see Ronda Rousey flourish as well as Kurt Angle. But Kurt Angle, it was the LeBron James. He flourished. He picked up wrestling like it was water.
Yeah.
He soaked it in very quickly. He was a sponge.
That's because Kurt Angle has a true wrestling background. He did Greco-Roman wrestling.
Right, but Daniel Hewlett, who was from MMA and was a champion, I think, in his own right, tried to come in wrestling and bombed completely.
Oh, Daniel Puder, yeah.
Now, Daniel Puder, but you had Ken Shamrock and the other guy, not Steve Blackman. I forgot, Steve something. Those guys were champions in WCW, and Shamrock was champion, intercontinental champion, and tag team champion at WWF. Mm-hmm. So, yes, if you have it, you can do it, and if you don't, you don't. You can use your MMA background. It will look great because there was a great WCW or TNA where it was with Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, and they hyped it up as if they were doing the Octagon. Mm-hmm. That was a great match in itself, but the way they presented it, it was great. Well, but I see a lot of upsets, and we'll see what happens. Okay. I mean, Mustafa Ali versus Cedric Alexander.
Yeah. That's
not being pushed as much. I don't know if Sasha Banks and Bailey are going to wrestle. And
I hate to cut this short, man, but unfortunately we're running low on time.
All right, then. Well, then I'll say au revoir, Wiedersehen, adios.
And I will say to you, we certainly thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next Monday night. Good night, everyone.
Hopefully, if everything goes all right and out of sight and these women stop looking at me because they